If you're joining us on Facebook Live, love having you follow us. We started a sermon series last week on love. That one passage that you probably have read in weddings, where they say, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it doesn't boast. You might be familiar with that passage. Ironically, it was written by a man who was never even married, but understood love and was writing it to a church that was just having a lot of issues. It was a church that was struggling in their relationships, and they were just having all this fighting going on. And the middle, it's kind of like the climax of the book, is where Paul has this passage on love. Now, I want to ask you something. I'm curious, shouldn't our relationships shouldn't they be pretty easy? Doesn't it seem like they should? I mean, all you have to do is love each other, right? All you have to do is be mature and treat each other with kindness. It seems like they should be easy, but they're so hard. They're so hard. And I think sometimes in a church setting, because we're talking a lot about love and relationships, and we want people to be able, not in different kinds of relationships. There's marriages, a relationship between a mother and daughter, and someone between a child and parent, and siblings and co-workers, and as Christians we're supposed to be experts in this, and we fail. Oh man, don't we? It's like, these relationships struggle at times. Well, and then we come to church, I think sometimes we can take that to heart and be frustrated with ourselves. So take heart in this. Jesus couldn't even get all of his relationships going. Jesus had one of his own disciples betray him. He had another disciple that disowned him. He was killed. So even Jesus struggled in these relationships, and what might seem like it should be so easy, I think in reality it's more difficult than we might think. It takes two to tango. I don't think Jesus is the problem. And so today we're looking at love and talking about these relationships, and I want to encourage you today. And I want to encourage you by sharing a way that you can improve your relationships through this powerful force of love. Last week we looked at the things love is, and that's what he does first, is he describes love as patient. Everyone knows I'm such a patient person, right? Love is supposed to be patient though, and love is kind. Today we're going to look at what love is not. That's kind of weird. But that's what Paul does. He very quickly, he says, love is like this, and love is not this. I'm glad he does this. I'm glad he pauses and tells us what love is not. Because I can fool myself. I can trick myself in thinking that I'm being kind when I'm not. And I'll deceive myself with the best of them. Surely you would never do that. But we can be tempted to. And so Paul goes through, and here's the 5 things he says love is not. First, love, it does not envy. Okay? Second, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's kind of interesting. And number 5, it is not self-seeking. So I'm going to take these descriptions and I'm going to say them a little bit differently. But I'm going to say this passage in a way that I think might connect even better to all of us. Okay? Here it is. I think there are 5 struggles you might have in your relationships. And these struggles are all about your desires. Number 1. You might struggle with having a desire for toys. And your desire to have toys in your life messes up your relationships. Number 2, I think you might struggle with a desire for status. and that desire you have for status, it could very easily mess up your relationships. Number 3, you could have a desire, surely not, but you might have a desire to be right. And if you have a desire to be right, it could very easily mess up your relationships. Number 4, you could have a desire to be important. Da-da-da! Here I am, Mr. Important. And if you have that desire, it could mess up your relationships. And number 5, you could have a desire for, that's a bad way to say it, but you could have a desire just for your desires. You could have a desire for all the wants you have, to wanting to get your way, the selfishness. And that desire to have what you want, it can really mess with your relationships. So let's work through all 5 of these. And what I want to do is I just want to ask you to examine your heart tonight. Just kind of look at yourself and just ask yourself with each one, does that live in me? I doubt, well, maybe someone can come and correct me later, but I don't think anyone in here will probably say, all five live in me. I don't know if that's true, maybe. But I bet some of these live in you. And if they do, they're probably wreaking havoc on the people that you love. It's probably causing a lot of the breakdown in your relationships. And so let's start that first one. The desire for toys. Oh, don't you love toys? Everyone has toys. Children have toys, and adults have toys. The only difference is adult toys are more expensive. We always have toys. There's a lot of things that we want. And isn't it interesting that the 10 Commandments in the Old Testament, here, this is a very important doctrine to establish our society on. Don't want what people have. Really? Don't kill people. That makes sense. If you're going to start a society, stand up and say, okay, we're gonna be a nation, so let's agree that we shouldn't kill each other. That makes sense, doesn't it? Let's agree that we shouldn't steal each other's stuff. That makes sense to me. But coveting, why is coveting on there? Why is one of the first ones, boom, don't want what other people have. This envy, this coveting, this jealousy, where you look over and go, oh, I'm so frustrated because I want that toy. But if you think about it, coveting is unique because it leads to so many other sins. Why do you steal things from people? Well, because you want it, right? Coveting leads to stealing. Why do you kill someone? That's the only way I could get it. I wanted to pry it out of their hand, pry it out of their cold dead hand. That's why I killed them. Why do you commit adultery? It's because I want his wife, All these sins, coveting's like a big part of it, isn't it? It leads us to so many sins. And so it's a fundamental expectation that God has for people is don't want other people's stuff. What was the first word you spoke? Your mother told you that it was mama. Mom, dad, maybe someone said drink, first word. They're lying to you. Do you know what your first word was? Mine! 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 This is mine! That was your first word. And your mother said, oh, he said mommy! No, it's the word mine, okay? That's what kids learn that word fast. Mine! 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 And they look over, it doesn't even matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a ball or a remote control to the TV. It doesn't matter. If someone else is playing with it, all kids look over and they go, I want that. I want it, mine. And they come over to grab it and get. It's like Satan is even there in the nursery. He's tempting us from the very beginning. It's this temptation to desire to have the toys that other people have. And this temptation doesn't leave us from childhood. It stays with us. Young children, as siblings, will sit at the table and go, his cake is bigger than mine. They'll keep track of how many toys this kid got versus me. They'll come home from school and say, but Tommy has it, why can't I have it? It's this jealousy, wanting other people's toys. And so, yeah, we sound smart as parents. You know, you look at the kids and you go, well, you don't want to be. Tommy has his parents, I have mine. You know, we know that's wrong. But we end up doing the same thing. Many people do. We buy vehicles we can't afford. And you know why we do it? Because our neighbors have it. And because we want it. Because it's cool. It's cool. We want the latest thing. We buy the latest cell phone. We want what's newest and coolest, even if it's expensive. And this quest for toys oftentimes hinders relationships. I had a lady once. She was a nice lady. I really liked her. She was eccentric, okay? She was eccentric, but who am I to talk, right? So she was an eccentric lady in the church. But I loved her. She was nice. And she wrote a letter to every single one of my church leaders. Every elder in the church got a letter from her. Same letter. A complaint about me and my preaching. I thought, oh, I didn't see this coming. I had no idea. The elders are coming in going, hey, I got this letter. I'm like, oh, this is weird. I'm reading it. Had another elder come in, hey, I got this letter. Oh, she sent it to everyone. She was really upset with me. And the letter went something like this. Listen to this. It said something like, I love Darren. I like him as a person. But his preaching has become very obnoxious. Because every week, he talks about his family. He talks about his wife and his children. And for those of us that don't have a spouse or children, it's basically rubbing our noses in it. It's insulting us. And so all we do is sit there and feel more alone each week, and it's not right. Well, that's interesting. And actually, my heart kind of hurts for her a little bit. It's hard to be all alone. That's hard. But what's actually there? And what actually came between her and I? It was jealousy. She's sitting there going, I want what he has, and it causes friction and frustration. It will do that when you notice people having things you don't have. Isn't that what politics is all about today? Honestly, isn't all politics today all about greed? Isn't all of it and stroking, getting other people to be greedy too? Hey, it's not fair. They have stuff that you don't have. Let's go get their stuff and give it to us. You know, it's greed is such a motivator politically right now. It's a huge force in our society, and it can damage almost any relationship. I ask you to look into your heart. I've sat down with so many couples, and I'll sit down and I'm expecting there to be like huge issues. What's going on? Oh no, if you have to talk to the pastor, it must be bad, right? It doesn't have to be, but oh no, what is this? And it's disagreements on how to spend money. Disagreements on hobbies. Frustrations and jealousy, even amongst the two. When he's spending more time over here than with me. And wow, jealousy's huge. Toys are huge. Look into your heart. Just be honest with yourself tonight. I can't see your heart. I don't know. Just look in and ask yourself, do I have a love for toys that's actually the root cause of my relationship struggles? And if so, tonight, why don't you decide it's time to let my love go? And it's time to prioritize someone else over toys. Number two. Your desire for status it can hinder your relationships. It said, love does not boast. Love does not boast. Boasting is when you elevate your status with your words. You let everyone know just how awesome you are. I know a guy that was like every single word out of his mouth was always a brag. He was bragging. He's a me monster. Me, I. Me, I. And so, why is he doing it? He's building up his status, right? But what's interesting is he only builds up the status in his own eyes. No one else thinks he's great. In fact, everyone else is going, yeah, we know, you. And they're rolling their eyes because we know if you have to say it, it's probably not true. If you have to tell everyone, I'm the best basketball player here, you have to say it, then yeah, you probably aren't. Otherwise, you just play your game and beat us and prove it, right? Bragging has this element that's just not true with it. And the reason we do this is because our status is important to us. Everyone wants a good reputation. But some of us even want a good status, the power that comes with it. And so we let other people know how good we are, how great we are, so that we can be superior. There's a group of friends who live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They had one of their friends who continually bragged all the time about his car. He just bought a new car, and this car had great gas mileage, and he knew it. So he was telling all of his friends, hey, I get 42 miles a gallon in this car. Can you believe that? What are you getting in this? I bet you just get like 26 miles. I get 42. This is great. 41 miles this week. And he kept bragging about how great his gas mileage was in his car. So his friends came up with an idea. I think this is awesome. They snuck over to his house at night and filled his gas can. Filled up his car at night. Every night for 2 weeks. So oh man, that gas mileage kept getting better and better. He's like, I get to 92 miles a gallon. This is awesome. This is great. I can't believe this, you know. I mean, his gas mileage was just soaring, you know. And then they stopped. Which is crueler than starting, you know. And all of a sudden, his enjoyment turned into misery. And he's like, where'd my gas mileage go, you know? And no one wants someone in their life that's bragging, building themselves up all the time. I'll admit it. I'm a competitive person. Oh man, if I'm going to play you in a game, I'm going to win. I want to win. I will win. And it's fun to brag. It's fun. It's fun to build myself up and say, look at me, I'm the king of the world. I'm the Monopoly king of the universe. Woohoo! But who wants to play with that guy? Look into your heart. Be honest with yourself. Do you have a love of status in your heart? If you do, I want you to know that when God describes what love is, he says love, it doesn't boast. True love doesn't. It's not building itself up. That's not love. Look into your heart. And if that's there, would you let that go? And would you prioritize the people in your life over your own status? Number 3, your desire, surely no one in here would fit this category. Your desire to be right. I've got to be right. Got to be right. Any relationship you have, it doesn't matter what that relationship is, at some point you will have a disagreement because we're not the same. We think different, we talk different, we will have some kind of a disagreement at some point. And when you do, how do you solve it? How do you solve an argument? What's the goal of an argument? Most people think the goal of an argument is to win. That can't be the goal of the argument. If that's the goal, your relationship is doomed. It doesn't matter what the relationship is, it is doomed if that's the goal. The goal ought to be the relationship itself. That's the goal. The goal is, how do we resolve this in a way where we can have some compromise and that we can move forward together. And so, I know the secret. I know the secret to end every single argument, or at least 90% of them. Here we go. Are you ready? Turn to the person next to you and say the magic words. You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. And if you really want to just do a slam dunk, you want to make sure that this relationship is going to stay together. You have a coworker and man, you're always disagreeing and arguing. You want to just make sure that relationship's strong. Add this. You're right. My bad. You're right. My bad. Go ahead and turn to someone and say, I'm truly sorry. Not the, I'm sorry that you. No. No. Has to be a true apology. It's, I'm sorry. I was preaching a sermon. This has been several years ago now. And this is one of those times I got it right. I promise you, I want to be right just like everyone. I'm only picking a good story, not so I necessarily look good, but so we have an example so we can think this through. This is an extreme story too. I'm preaching a sermon, and I was preaching this story of Moses coming down from the mountain, holding those 10 commandments in his arms. And one of those 10 commandments is, don't covet, and he comes down. And when he gets to the bottom of the mountain, all the Israelites are worshiping a false calf, a false god. And they're singing songs to it, making sacrifices to it, and they're saying, this calf saved us from the Egyptians. Now raise your hand if you think Moses has every right to be angry. He's angry. He's mad. Okay? So he takes the 10 commandments and he throws them down. You ever wonder if is it possible to break all 10 commandments at once? He did. He broke them all. Boom! All 10 shattered. Broke the 10 commandments. Now raise your hand. Anyone think that was a good action? And so that was my sermon. I thought it was kind of clever. You can be right to be angry, but wrong in how you're angry. That was the sermon. Now, I am kind of an exaggerator. I emphasize things. It's hard for me to talk about anger without actually looking angry, And so I'm telling the story. Moses, he comes down, he has 10 commandments, and he breaks the 10 commandments, and he's so angry, and he breaks, and After the sermon, a man came over to me in the church. His name was David. David said, Darren, I need to talk to you. I said, oh, okay. So we go into my office. He shuts the door. He sits down. And he lays into me. He starts yelling at me. He starts calling me names. He starts cussing at me. I'm sitting there going, what in the world? And he's angry because I had yelled at everyone during the sermon. And I realized, he heard the tone of the message. He saw the message. It was like, the whole point of the message is to not act out in your anger. That's the whole point. But he had heard the tone and he had troubles hearing the content for some reason. And as he's yelling at me in my office, my blood starts to boil. I start getting defensive. I'm getting really upset. Coming in here yelling at, you're doing the very thing you're mad at me doing, and I wasn't even doing it, you're doing it. Oh, I was getting really upset. But as he's yelling at me, I thought, okay, he's not going to hear anything I say. He is so angry with me right now. If I even try to explain to him, if I calmly go, hey, look, I wasn't angry, man. No. You don't. I could try to explain that. I go, he's not going to listen to me. So I started thinking through what are my options. I'm pondering different options, and then I realized what I could do. My relationship with him had to be more important than this one topic that we're talking about right now. And so when he finally gave me a chance to speak, I said, I just need to thank you. I want to thank you for your willingness to come and confront me on this. You're right. It's not right. It's never good to just yell at people. That's terrible, just to unload on someone like that. I just need to spend some time praying about this, because I hate the fact that today happened. Would you be willing to pray for me? And could you forgive me? Can I just ask for your forgiveness? Oh yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And he left. Let me tell you something. Years later, I still know I was right. I was right. He was the one being right. He was the one in the wrong. But my relationship with him had to take priority. That's the point. So love, it allows someone else to be right. It surrenders. Now, I'm not saying you ought to surrender to a mob. If some mob came over to you and some sort of cancel culture that's trying to get you to apologize for something that you didn't even do. I'm talking about the people you care about. I'm talking about your spouse and your kids and your family. I'm talking about your sister, and I'm talking about your friend. I'm talking about church people, and I'm talking about the people in your life. If you truly value them, what issue is so important that you can't just humble yourself and go, you're right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Would you please forgive me? That's just valuing people more than yourself. Number 4, your desire to be important can definitely injure your relationships. It words it like this. It says, it does not dishonor others. If you ever are tempted to put people down and belittle people, you know, you might see it even as teasing them, where you're making comments and you're poking and you're pointing out, you messed up, you failed, you didn't do this right, you're always doing this. You might even be tempted to throw all those alwayses there. Well, you always do this. Well, you always. You know, and you put people down. The reason you do that is to build yourself up. It's actually a desire to be important. You may not think it all through at the time, but that's what you're doing, and you can at least agree to this. It's not loving to dishonor others. It's not a very loving thing to do. I went to it was a Burger King. It was a Burger King. Ordered my food. Plain chicken sandwich, because I'm adventurous. And I ordered French fries. And for me, I always like to have barbecue sauce to dip my French fries in. That's the only way I eat French fries. I asked for a couple containers of barbecue sauce, and they told me it'd be 23 cents a piece. And that made me mad. I'm not paying 23 cents for barbecue sauce, no. I'm like, okay. So I paid for the rest of the meal, and I went over and I sat down mad. My meal came, I went over and got it, and I sat down, I'm like, oh man. Tried to eat the French fries. I want my barbecue sauce. I'm like, oh Darren, you're being cheap. It's 2 quarters. Pay for your barbecue sauce. I was like, oh, fine. Well, so I get up and I go back up to the counter. But this time there's a line standing there. Well, I'm not saying this story makes me look good, but I thought I was past standing in line time. I've already stood in my line. I've already done my time. My french fries are getting cold, right? So I come and I stand in the fill up my free refill drink line. I come and I stand over there and I get someone's attention. Say, hey, I just need a couple things of barbecue sauce. I have a couple quarters here. He's like, oh. Okay, so you can tell he's on a mission to do this. I'm coming in sideways saying I need this. So he reaches over, grabs 2 things of barbecue sauce, puts it down, grabs my 2 quarters, puts them in his pocket. Oh, man. And then turns around. I said, excuse me. Excuse me. He turns around again. I said, I need my change. He said, oh, they're 23 cents a piece. I said, I know. 23 cents plus 23 cents is 46 cents. I need my change. And then loudly, is everyone going to be ashamed of me? Everyone's going to say, I'm not going back to that church. That pastor's a jerk. Loudly. Because I'm such a mature person. What happens to me? What is this? I say, if I'm going to have to start paying 23 cents for barbecue sauce, I'm going to have to start counting my pennies. You know, 50 cents is going to do me in. He said, I'm sorry. He sneaks over the cash register. He gets coins. I don't even know if tax. I could have underpaid. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just frustrated. And I get my change feeling like I was successful. I go over and I sit down with now my cold french fries. My barbecue sauce. What did I lose? How could I ever minister to that young man? How could he ever know about the love of Jesus Christ? Love, it doesn't think that it's so important. It's not that I'm so important right now. Everyone needs to yield to me. Love doesn't dishonor other people. It shows other people respect. It trusts other people and lifts them up. I'm going to ask you to look into your heart. Be honest with yourself. Is there a desire within you to be important, and are you putting down others and trampling over them? And if so, could you let that go? And instead, could you show them love? Finally, your personal wants, your desires, your selfishness can come and injure your relationships. He says, love is not self-seeking. It's not self-seeking. The world will tell you to look out for number one. The Bible says to treat others like they're number one. Of course, love isn't self-seeking because love is sacrifice. That's what love is. And we learn about love from what God did. God became a person. God lives outside of time. And he gave up that, I can't even fathom living outside of time. And he gave that up and established and put himself on the timeline, born. God is spirit. He's everywhere all the time. And he gave that up. I can't even fathom what that is, let alone what it means to give it up, by putting himself in flesh and blood and being contained to a specific location. He was this God who didn't need anything from anybody, and now he needs his mother to feed him. He needs air and food, and this God who created everything now is able to die. And he suffers and bleeds and and is betrayed, and he's crucified, and he dies. That's what love is. It's sacrifice. He didn't do it for himself. He didn't go, hey, I think this will make me happy if I give up divinity and become a person. No, he did this because that's what love is. It's sacrificial. It's not self-serving, it's self-giving, it's self-sacrifice. Look into your heart and just be honest with yourself. Is the real struggle I have with my relationships just the fact that I'm really selfish at times? And I just want what I want? And if so, would you be willing to let that go? And prioritize the people in your life even more and just love them. And none of this is easy. That's the foolish thing that we talked about at the beginning where it's like, should relationships be easy? It's not. And the reason it's not is because of our own hearts, because of my heart and your heart. It's because we have other things that we start to prioritize over the people around us. But if you can let that go and just love someone and desire for them to have the toys, desire for them to have the status, desire for them to be important, desire for them to be right, desire for them to have what they want in life. And if you bless them, that is the definition of love. And you will more than likely maintain that relationship. Let's pray. Lord, I know that I have a lot of work to do. I know that I'm not perfect, but boy, I just thank you for showing me love. For being willing to sacrifice so much for me, for putting so many people in my life over the years from childhood till now, people that have been willing to place my needs over others. I thank you for that, Lord, and I just pray that we can truly honor you by doing our best to show your love to the people in our life. It's in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that we all pray. Amen.